Ladies and gentlemen, fellas, how y'all doing today? All right, today we're going to be talking about the best fantasy picks, the must-draft fantasy football 2021 picks for each round of your draft. Now, we're not going to do all 20 rounds if you're in a 20-round league, which I encourage you to play in more rounds. The more flex spots, the more bench spots, the better for you who's actually a sharp, educated drafter. Get rid of your kickers. Stop drafting in 14-man leagues where you only have 4 bench spots. No. Add more. But for this video, we're going to go 12 rounds deep. Yeah, not just 5, not just 8, not 10. We're going to really prepare you as of this recording, less than 2 weeks until the season starts. So this ADP is going to basically be as sharp as possible. There is August 31st, September 1st cut day, which maybe some things get shaken up and some things get changed. But by that time, you have a week or so to adjust ADPs. There should not be much differences. So we're going to start it off with round 1, and I'd appreciate it if you want to hit the like button right now or at any point when you decide that you like this video. So I'm pulling up Fantasy Pros ADP. That is their average draft position. They consolidate it from 5 or 6 different sources here. So the first round pick, this is for 12-man leagues. You can use 10 if you really want to. And we're going to scroll to him. And here he is, the number 8 overall player on Fantasy Pros ADP. He currently as well resides as my number 8 overall player, but I think it also builds in a very secure and safe floor in Davante Adams. Not only do you have the insane league-high target share of 10.6 targets per game, over a 34% target share last year, you got that insane red zone usage. A 42.2% red zone target share last year is unreal. I mean, this guy did everything that he did. The highest scorer in fantasy points last year, 25.6 fantasy points per game. The highest score. He missed a couple of games, otherwise he would have been the overall raw scorer. And oh yeah, not only did he have the volume, he was also the most efficient wide receiver. What does that mean? Number 1 in yards per route run, meaning the amount of yards that he secured on his routes. That is the best indicator of efficiency for pass catchers, whether it's running backs, whether it is tight ends, or yes, wide receivers. So not only was he the highest volume receiver, also the highest efficiency. And even if those numbers drop a little bit, I'm not expecting 25.6 fantasy points per game, historic type of fantasy seasons out of a wide receiver. I'm just expecting security. Aaron Rodgers is back. This offensive line is still going to be solid. I know they lose Corey Linsley. I know you're going to have some injuries on the offensive line to start the year. He is going to be a receiver in a very high-powered offense. So when all of those running backs, those secure running backs go off the board, let somebody else make the mistake of drafting Travis Kelce in the first round in your home league. Yes, Davante Adams looks like the safest option in my opinion, who also has, like you saw last year, elite upside. He's my favorite first-round pick, factoring in everything. Obviously, if you're picking 1st or 2nd overall, don't take him. Take the Zeke, Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey, whatever you want to up there. But if you're in that like 6 through 10 range and he's there, that's when I'd start considering Davante Adams. Now, the second player for me was surprising, and it's the guy at the top of this list. His name's Austin Ekeler. I was surprised to see that Austin Ekeler's ADP is the 2nd round, because for me, he's my number 7 overall player in PPR formats and my number 10 overall player in half-point PPR. So it was very interesting to see him as the 13th ranked overall player here. And Austin Ekeler, it's pretty simple. He's highly efficient as a pass-catching player. So if this is non-PPR for you, yeah, he's not going to be this high for me, so don't draft him there. But in half PPR to PPR, this is going to be as elite as it gets. In 16 career games when there's been no Melvin Gordon in this backfield, aka that he's had basically the backfield to himself when he's been back there, he's averaged over 20.5 fantasy points per game. In the last 5 years, 20.5 fantasy points per game would have finished top 5 every single year at the running back position, top 4 every single year at the running back position, and top 3 in 3 out of those 5 seasons. We already have the writing on the wall of what Austin Ekeler can be in this offense, and yes, that was what a lot of Phillip Rivers and a check down artist, but Herbert was fine checking the ball down last year. He is a little bit more mobile, so that can be a concern in general, but he was very fine checking the ball down to Austin Ekeler in his starts last year. There's no backfield competition, as all the guys back there are basically dust. Larry Roundtree, compared to all NFL running backs, was the least athletic ever coming out in the last 10 years of the draft. Not concerned there. Joshua Kelly was a really struggle point last year to UCLA. And then you have Justin Jackson, who's been banged up in camp and not practicing for 2 to 3 weeks, and also not a concern. It's all going to be Austin Ekeler. Now, the goal line role probably won't be there for him, although there's been some murmurings from himself in interviews that it might be coming a little bit more than you expect. The improved offensive line of Corey Linsley and Rashawn Slater. Slater from the draft, the best pro-ready offensive lineman in that draft. Corey Linsley, the best center in football last year, and probably a top 5 just smartest player in the NFL. That's good to see in terms of reading protections, audibles, whatever it might be. My favorite 2nd round pick is going to be, as of right now, for the value, Mr. Must Draft Austin Ekeler. Now we get into the 3rd round, and I want to let you know that we do have a 2021 fantasy football draft guide if you are still drafting, assuming that you are from this video. My top 200s in there, my player rankings, DraftKings. I have tiers as well, which I personally draft off of. I have 90 running backs ranked, 125 receivers, 50 tight ends, yes, and 50 quarterbacks. No matter how deep your league is, you will be the most informed and educated drafter in that draft. If you dominate your draft, it sets you up for a massive edge up on the competition to win your league. It's not the only thing you need to do. You have to pay attention the rest of the year, but a massive leg up. That's what the Supreme Draft Guide is going to do. There's a chance to get it for free if you are eligible. Linked down below. You can check out how to do that, but both options to get it are linked down below. Just in case you're not eligible, check out the Fantasy Football 2021 Draft Guide. The third round, my favorite player goes off the board as the 28th player overall right here, and that man's name is Keenan Allen, who was recently in another video of mine, and I think not only is he safe, not only does he have massive upside, but I think he has some sort of upside that we really haven't seen heading into this year, where this is the second year of Justin Herbert, where he can potentially take another step forward. Some people want to question, but what if Justin Herbert slumps? What if the fans coming back are a thing? And I guess those are real things, but I just question, how can he slump after he was the number one pressured quarterback last year, and he was also the number one most successful quarterback under pressure, and now they have actually built him an offensive line. He'll have a security blanket at least to start the year, hopefully for all 17 games, in a Austin Eckler, a healthy Mike Williams starting the year, and the best wide receiver 3 this Chargers team has had in probably a decade in Josh Palmer. Keenan Allen last year, quietly number 2 in the NFL with 10.5 targets per game, only behind the before-mentioned Devontae Adams. He has finished as a top 8 wide receiver in 3 of the last 4 years. His worst finish during that time was 13th overall. And I get this question as my recent TikTok had Keenan Allen in it. Check me out there. We're doing a very good job on TikTok, and I'm enjoying it over there, spreading a little to different platforms. Follow me at Sal Vetri. People say, oh, but he's injury prone. I laugh at that. He's been the third most reliable and third healthiest wide receiver over the last 4 years. He's only missed 4 games in the last 4 years of the wide receiver position. 1 per year. Sign me up for that. But he tore his ACL 6 years ago. Oh, he had a freak injury 5.5 years ago. Yeah, those things are not clearly affecting him 5 years later. I mean, they rarely do a year after the surgery. It's usually a stronger kneecap that you got in there now. You're going to get the volume from Keenan Allen yet again. I know Eckler will take some usage away, but the volume will still be there, and he gets used in the red zone. That's the big thing. A 25% red zone target share last year is so strong. He's safe with upside. My favorite third-round pick, Keenan Allen. In the 4th round, I enjoy going to this player who is Mr. Reliable, who was a top 6 graded wide receiver for me last year, and not just because better players have come into the league. Guys have taken steps forward like CeeDee Lamb and A.J. Brown and Terry McLaurin. He's not that high for me anymore, but he is still my number 11 wide receiver, and that man's name is Allen Robinson II. Shout out Penn State, Mr. Reliable, who now is finally potentially going to get the best quarterback play of his career when, it's not really if, but when Justin Fields takes the field for the Bears, which looks very much sooner than later. But you're getting a wide receiver who's had back-to-back 150 target seasons, right? Over 1,100 yards in each year. Air yards are galore for this guy. He's now had 1,200 or more air yards in 4 of the last 5 years. I mean, you're getting that all out of Allen Robinson, a built-in 25+% target share with massive red zone upside above 25% in the 4th round. It's just hard to pass that up. There's just so many good wide receivers right now in fantasy that some of them slide to the 4th round, right? Amari Cooper, Allen Robinson. These are some of the names. Get Allen Robinson if he's there with your 4th round pick. Like, if you're able to start with a running back, say you get in the 1st round a Saquon, whatever it might be, with like the 8th or 7th pick, and then you can go from there with a DeAndre Hopkins, and then you come back around and you double tap some of the guys that we just talked about in Keenan Allen and Allen Robinson. I mean, that is as secure, in my opinion, as a start as it possibly gets with a stud running back. Maybe it's not Saquon, it could be anybody else that you like, and then 3 receivers with Allen Robinson being your 4th round pick. Feels real fucking good. Now, my favorite 5th round pick is going to be one that I've discussed on the show in the past, but not for a little while, and that man's name, 53rd overall. Right now, he goes as the wide receiver 19. He's my wide receiver 14, and that is Cooper Kupp. This man now who has a massive, and I say a massive, quarterback upgrade. And there's some people out there who want to say that this is not a massive quarterback upgrade. I mean, last year alone, these are the better metrics for Stafford over Mr. Jared Goff. In overall attempts, yards per attempt, overall touchdowns, air yards per attempt, accuracy rating, deep attempts, deep accuracy rating, right? True completion percentage, everything that actually fucking matters from a rate standpoint, he was better than. The only thing he wasn't better than was overall volume of attempts. What does that mean? It just means that they threw the ball more in Los Angeles than with Sean McVay, who's a smart coach, than they actually did with Matt Patricia in Detroit, where they ran the ball a lot more, and that makes a lot of sense. Because, not the greatest coach. That's why he's not there anymore. But you're getting an elite yards after the catch guy who's had top 4 in yards after the catch in back-to-back years. Now actually going to get somebody who can run an offense and get closer to the red zone, hit more deep attempts for him, and he has some red zone chops. A guy who only had 3 touchdowns last year, that's going to regress. Even if it regresses to 5 or 6 in what should be a better and more efficient offense, it's going to mean things for him. He's going to finish probably top 15 like I have him at the wide receiver position. So my favorite 5th round pick, 53rd overall right now, you can get him, and that is Cooper Kupp. The 6th round really depends on what you've done done so far with your squad, because there's two guys I like. One's a running back, one's a receiver. The guy that I'm going to talk about is Mike Davis. The receiver that I would talk about if you've already had a bunch of running backs or 2 running backs drafted is going to be Brandon Ayuk. So Brandon Ayuk, I love him. This guy was the most impressive rookie to me last year in terms of his routes run ability, even more so than CeeDee Lamb, who was fantastic. Ayuk is going to break out. Now, there's obviously concerns on if a rookie quarterback comes in, can he sustain George Kittle, Ayuk, and Debo? I say no, but I actually think that Ayuk is the number 1 player on that list to potentially be sustained. But we're going to talk about Mike Davis here, who right now goes at the beginning of the 6th round. Now, here's the thing. This is very, very minute. I am not taking Mike Davis in the 5th round. Definitely not taking him in the 4th round. But if he falls right now where Fantasy Pros ADP is saying to the beginning of the 6th round, and he's there in your home league in the 6th round in a 12-team league, 7th round in a 10-team league, that's where I'm fine taking him if I need the running back insurance, because this is one of the final workhorse running backs you're going to find in the draft that actually has, if not the final, that actually has pass-catching chops. I mean, Mike Davis is a journeyman running back. He's 28 and a half years old. He probably would have done something for the Bears if they gave him a shot, but they didn't. So there are some major concerns with him. We've never actually seen him do it as a whole year as a workhorse. He's an older running back now, relatively, right? I mean, 28 and a half. He's got maybe 2 years of strong production, if he's lucky, left in the NFL. So when does that fall off the cliff? He's going to turn 29 this year. Is it this year? The offensive line for the Falcons is a concern. It's a work in progress for 2 to 3 years now. So these are all reasons why you do not spend a 4th or a 5th round pick on Mike Davis. In the 6th and 7th round, though, that's when it starts to become something of value, because Mike Davis last year, it was 11 games that he was the guy, right? McCaffrey played 3, Davis missed 2 in his own right. So there was 11 games when he was the guy, and he had a 59 reception season. That is the key here, right? This is a guy who has a 3-down back workload. They just cut undrafted free agent Javion Hawkins. The only guy out of Pittsburgh in this backfield is Quadre Olson, who is very much closer at 230 plus pounds to a fullback than an actual threat in this offense. There's nothing else in this backfield. They cut Tony Brooks-Jones. They cut Ito Smith. They have nothing left in this backfield after Mr. Mike Davis. Now, this video is dropping literally in a day and a half from my recording. I'm scheduling it, so I really hope they don't bring in anybody in that time, right? Cuts are not until the 31st, so I think we're safe, knock on wood. But you just saw Sony Michel get traded. The only guy that they can bring in that I'd be concerned with is probably not Royce Freeman since the Mike Boone injury. Maybe Jordan Wilkins from the Colts if he gets cut. If the Falcons had him, that could be a concern for Mike Davis, sure. But aside from anything like that, he's just going to have the opportunities. He's going to see the checkdowns. He's probably going to catch somewhere around 70 balls this year, if not closer to 100 if he plays all 17 games. So it is very important that you know that that is a good 6th round pick, not a good 4th or 5th round pick in my opinion. And now I'm really surprised where you can get this next player. Literally the last pick of the 7th round in 12-team leagues, so that means you're getting him in like the 8th round in your 10-man leagues, is Jerry Jeudy, 84th overall, wide receiver 34 he goes off the board as. I mean, Jerry Jeudy is a top 25 wide receiver for me in my rankings. I just don't understand this at all. Jerry Jeudy, like I just mentioned with Brandon Ayuk, was one of the better rookie route runners last year, and that was his calling coming out. Alabama, out of the slot on the outside, he was able to dominate no matter where he was put. That's why he was taken so highly by the Denver Broncos. I mean, when you look at this, and I know Courtland Sutton was hurt last year, of course, but either way, 113 targets as a rookie, commanding 113 targets as a rookie is as impressive as it gets from a target share standpoint. Sure, Sutton is going to take some of that away now, but I would also caution you that Tim Patrick last year, yes, Tim Patrick, do not laugh at the name, was a very productive wide receiver. Likely not as productive as a healthy Courtland Sutton would have been, but it wasn't like the drop-off was a 50% of Courtland Sutton. Like Tim Patrick was like 80 to 85% of Courtland Sutton for about 2 months of the season last year. So we can't just assume that Courtland Sutton coming back is now like going to secure a 30% target share. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think Jerry Jeudy firmly holds a target share in this offense. And the narrative's been drawn out, but if you're not familiar, Jerry Jeudy last year ranked number 6 in air yards, meaning he was getting deep targets off them, meaning he was getting open off them because he was earning those targets. He's a good player. So 6th in overall air yards, but only 32nd in air yards completed. Why? Because he ranked bottom 5 in catchable target rate. 38% of Jerry Jeudy's targets last year were not catchable, meaning that they were underthrown, overthrown, massively not on target, and that's because of Drew Lock. Well, now Teddy Bridgewater has been named the starter, and I personally am not going to jump up here and say Teddy Bridgewater is fantastic. There's a narrative out there that he's a safer, underneath, check down Teddy, right? We saw him with Sean Payton, who's fantastic. We saw him do some things in Minnesota, but I think that narrative is overblown. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater was definitely one of the worst quarterbacks, bottom 5 in the NFL the second half of last year. He was not accurate. He was not doing good things for DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson. So I'm actually not that excited about the Teddy Bridgewater. I've seen some people go out there and say, oh, this is fantastic for him. Like, I personally was hoping it would be Drew Lock. Drew Lock is just a YOLO player, right? Obviously, you would hope the accuracy gets better, and that's the main reason why he would win the job in the first place. But I was hoping it would be Drew Lock because that guy's going to fling the rock lock down field more often and create those big plays and force it into tight needles. Yeah, he'll throw interceptions, but at least let's try that out and see if it'll work a little bit. Teddy Bridgewater, you know what you're getting, safety and security. So I don't think it's a negative that Teddy Bridgewater is the quarterback. I can see that argument for why he is a positive. I think it's a false one. I just think it's a neutral thing here. I think Drew Lock would have actually created a little bit more upside and excitement. Either way, though, Jerry Jeudy for me, my favorite 7th round pick, 84th overall, is just massively too low. Next up, we head to the 8th round, and this man that I like a lot here is a rookie running back who was traded up for in the draft. And no, I'm not describing, although I am describing actually, Javonte Williams. I'm not talking about him. And this man's name, 91st overall, the running back 36. He's my running back 20, I believe 6 right now, is a massive value in the 8th round. And that man's name is Trey Sermon. Now, here's the thing with Trey Sermon. The fact that you can get him in the 8th to 9th round is just so damn great because Javonte Williams goes in the 6th round. Look, Melvin Gordon hasn't played in the preseason because they're just basically holding him out. He's dealing with some injuries, but he's going to play in the regular season. These aren't major injuries. They just want to hold him out, not push him in the preseason. So people are rising on Javonte Williams, and, you know, rightfully so, but they're rising because they're just seeing more action in the preseason. You know, you're seeing his face more, you're seeing his stats. People talk about him more because there's no Melvin Gordon to split some of the touches. Whereas for comparison, Trey Sermon didn't even play in the last preseason game on ice because, you know, they actually enjoy him and want him to be healthy and want to use him. But here's the thing. I mean, Trey Sermon's just a discount Javonte Williams. They were 3 and 4, Javonte 3, Trey Sermon 4 for me in my rankings coming into the pre-draft process in terms of talent and how I viewed them as running backs. They were both traded up for in the draft, but I would argue that Trey Sermon lands in a much better situation with Kyle Shanahan, an offensive genius, an offensive-minded head coach with the best running game in the NFL, whereas you get Javonte going to Denver with a very sketchy offensive line, guys already out/injured for the year, a defensive head coach, likely doesn't have insane pass-catching chops, and he goes 2 to 3 rounds earlier than Trey Sermon. So Trey Sermon right now, for me, I think that's really great. And it was good to see him flash an 8.4% target share his final year at college. It was never elite numbers because they just didn't check down to the running back at Ohio State, but it was very good to see him flash that number to at least command those targets and show that he was capable and a worthy target to throw to. It's also encouraging for Sermon, not for these players. We never wish injury upon anybody, but for these players, I mean, Mostart's been dealing with a back injury all preseason. He's a little bit older of a player. He's only played full season one time, and then you got Jeff Wilson missing the first month or two, and Trey Sermon in the preseason game that he's played thus far has ran ahead of Mr. Wayne Gallman. So it looks like it's Trey Sermon's season, and he might even start the year as the RB1 if Mostart's back lingers. And if you're still here, if you're enjoying this video, please take a second of your time, hit the like button and or the subscribe button, and let me know in the comment section right now, who is your favorite? Who is your favorite player right now to be drafting? It can be in the first round, more so maybe the middle rounds. You can get a nice value there. Let me know in the comments who's your favorite guy that you love drafting, that when you get him on your squad, when he's there, your eyes glow up and you hit that draft button within like 5 fucking seconds. Let me know. So in the 9th round right now, I like Antonio Brown the most. I just think that this is potentially a top 15, I mean, definitely top 20 upside, but top 15, top 12 even wide receiver that you're getting in the 9th round. Now, his teammates and Mike Evans, I'm down on. Chris Godwin, I'm down on. The problem is, and the reason why, is because Antonio Brown is there. Yes, there's 3 strong receivers that any of them can finish as the highest, so I'll take the one that has a 6 round discount in Antonio Brown. Oh yeah, the one that last year actually led all of these receivers in target share the 8 games that he played when he came mid-season. The one that last year averaged in the final month of the season when he started to click with Tom Brady over 20 fantasy points per game. His final month of the season, he was a top 6 wide receiver in fantasy football. Yeah, pretty damn good. He commanded the ball from Tom Brady. He was number 2 in the NFL last year in targets per snap. When he was on the field, Brady was looking his way. He ended up being overall top 5 in catch rate. He saw 9 deep attempts in just 8 games. There's a lot of upside for Antonio Brown in the 9th round. I mean, if Antonio Brown started to go in like the 7th and 6th round, I personally wouldn't find as much value there, but I even wouldn't think that that was crazy. Antonio Brown right now goes off the board as like a wide receiver 40, and he's inside my top 35 wide receivers. So now we're in those double-digit rounds. We got 3 rounds left. Right now, in the 10th round, he's rising lately. I've been doing some best ball drafts, and he goes in the 8th and 9th round, but your home league, he likely won't rise as much because people there are not as sharp, and that is Corey Davis at 113th overall in the 10th round. Going off the board as wide receiver 46, that's clearly going to continue to rise as he's shown nice things during the preseason. For me personally, he is nowhere near wide receiver 46. He's inside my top 35 wide receivers. I think he has legit top 20 to top 15 wide receiver upside this year, and that's a no-doubter. Through 2 preseason games as of this recording, and he'll play another if he actually plays, you've seen 13 routes run by Corey Davis. So he's ran 13 routes. He's taken every single snap with the first team offense in Zach Wilson. They're expected to play 1 to 3 drives in preseason week 3. We'll see how that goes. But he's taken 13 routes. He's been targeted on 10 of those routes, an 80+% right now target rate. The NFL average, if you're a quality player, is like a 15 to 18%. An 80+%. Obviously, there's no Elijah Moore out there, but this is the wide receiver one on the Jets with a big armed quarterback in Corey Davis, who they just paid the second highest contract for a wide receiver in free agency, 3 years, $37.5 million, guaranteeing $27 million of that, coming off the best year of his career, a top 5 efficiency wide receiver last year. Yes, he was one of the best wide receivers in football. He ranked top 5 next to Julio Jones, next to Devontae Adams, next to his former teammate in A.J. Brown. That's how good he was last year, deservingly so, getting this contract now in New York. In the 10th round, he's not going to be there for much longer. He might start to slide into the 8th or 9th round, and I still value him as a great pick in the 8th or 9th round. He's a fantastic pick if you can continue to get him in the 10th round of your home leagues. So now we go to the 11th round and we have a quarterback. The first quarterback that we're talking about right now, who I think is a massive value, 124th overall, goes as the quarterback 14. He's my quarterback 10, and that is Trevor Lawrence. Look, people are getting all overhyped about these other mobile quarterbacks, and here's the big thing to talk about. Look, everybody's getting overhyped about Trey Lance. His ADP continues to rise. He's looked like absolute dog shit, in my opinion, for the most part in the preseason. Yes, he's made 1 or 2 good throws, but he's looked like dog shit. He's not going to start week 1. If you took odds on it, I'm sorry. He's not starting week 1, barring a Jimmy G injury. Justin Fields has looked better than him. Zach Wilson has looked better than him. Trevor Lawrence has looked a lot better than him. Oh, but Trevor Lawrence, we all watched on Monday night. He couldn't do anything. Did you see his offensive line? And even then, he was still able to make some impressive throws. Week 1 of the preseason, he made 2 or 3 throws that you were like, holy shit, this guy's a rookie. This guy was the number 1 ever graded prospect coming out of high school. This guy for the last 10 years has been number 1 in the systems for quarterbacks that track quarterback prospects. But for some reason, we're forgetting about him. Oh, but Sal, he can't run for 100 yards like Trey Lance can. Well, running for 100 yards is hard, especially when you're not starting. He is the day 1 starter on this team. And let me remind you, Trevor Lawrence in college averaged nearly 25 rushing yards per game. He has mobility. He has mobile upside. He has rushing touchdown upside. This guy right now is being absolutely disrespected. I get it. The offensive line and the coaching, probably more so, has not looked good in the preseason. But that's baked into this price. That's why he's going in the 11th round right now. I think Trevor Lawrence is one of the better late-round quarterbacks right now in the draft because people, for some reason, are just not as excited. The pre-draft process, he was the obvious number 1 overall pick. It's like Christian McCaffrey. Whenever people do fantasy advice or analysis, he's the obvious number 1 pick. You don't talk much more about him, so you don't really know a lot more about him. Like Trevor Lawrence is not on the top of your mind because he's been this great player for the last 10 years. So it's just like, yeah, it's Trevor Lawrence. Fine. It's vanilla. It's just him. We know how good he is. Whatever. It's not as exciting as, oh, it's Trey Lance. 3rd overall out of nowhere, a small school in South Dakota. Wow, this guy's rushing upside. Kyle Shanahan likes him. Right, all this stuff. So marketing-wise, we think of those guys first. I like Trevor Lawrence more than the Justin Fields and Trey Lances as of right now. And we're about to get into the 12th and final round, my favorite pick. Again, I appreciate if you want to check out that Fantasy Football 2021 draft guide and let me know who's your favorite guy, the value that you get, if it's in the 4th, the 5th, the 10th, the 1st, whatever it is that you like personally drafting, that you're hitting that draft button on as fast as you fucking possibly can. All right, ladies, gentlemen, fellas, in the 12th round, my favorite pick for me right now is going to be a man who goes 133rd overall, who currently is dealing with an AC joint sprain, but they said that he's even potentially going to play in the final week's preseason game. Then he has 2 weeks off, so I'm not concerned with him missing the regular season. The number 1 receiver, yes, I did not stutter. The number 1 receiver right now on the Jacksonville Jaguars, that man's name is Marvin Jones. Marvin Jones was the only wide receiver starting, Laviska Shenault, DJ Shark, and himself, starting wide receiver on this team that was actually given a bag, that was actually invested in by this team. Laviska Shenault, draft pick from the former regime. DJ Shark, draft pick from the former regime. $9 million guaranteed, 2 years, $14.5 million to be handpicked, reconnected with his former offensive coordinator, Darren Bevel from Detroit. That means something. He was the most targeted overall receiver in camp with Trevor Lawrence, and the most targeted per snap basis in the preseason through 2 games has been Marvin Jones, already catching 8 balls in literally 2 quarters of play with Trevor Lawrence. And look, this was a guy who, with Detroit when healthy, was always a top 25 receiver week in and week out in people's rankings. Matthew Stafford to Trevor Lawrence might actually be an upgrade. I don't think it's a massive downgrade. If anything, it's neutral, but it might actually be an upgrade for him. 3 out of the last 4 years, at least 9 touchdowns. 4 out of the last 6 years, at least 100 targets. He gets open. He commands the rock. Laviska Shenault will be in the slot. Was not really used all that much in 2 wide receiver sets like a Marvin Jones was. DJ Shark has been in and out of camp all offseason, and he has been solid 2 years ago because of volume. He's never been an efficient receiver. Even in the year where he had his big breakout year in 2019, he ranked outside the top 40 in yards per route run, meaning he was not personally getting open or doing anything after the catch. It was more so just the overall volume that he saw from a lack of other threats in the offense. It escalated him upwards and made a name for himself. Now Marvin Jones is there. Laviska Shenault is there. James Robinson is there for his 2nd year now. Now Trevor Lawrence is there. There's other weapons, if you will, on this team. It's a long time coming from 2 years ago when DJ Shark was the best player on this team, him and Leonard Fournette. It's not the same team, nowhere near that. anymore. So those are my favorite players in each of the first 12 rounds of your draft. Must draft fantasy football 2021 picks in each round of the drafts. If I do say so myself, I thought it was a pretty solid video, but let me know by liking the video and or subscribing and joining the community. You have any questions, let me know in the comments section. We're doing videos every day until the season starts, and then we're going to be talking about betting, DFS, seasonal content every single day until February and the Super Bowl is over. I'm pumped to have you here. It's the best time of the year. Less than 2 weeks to the season starts. Maybe you're watching this a few days before. I hope it helps you with your draft. Check out the Fantasy Football 2021 playlist for even more analysis, free analysis here, FREE, free, to be able to dominate your drafts. It's all linked down below. It'll pop up at the end of this video. I'll see you all in the next one.